What's up, everybody, and welcome to our spoiler review episode here for the last two episodes of Doctor Who we missed last week here. Brought to you by the
Geek
Buddies.
Hey!
Well,
we missed last week. It's my fault. I was priding, everybody. It was too much. I was too proud of being gay, and we totally missed our window to review last week, and I was mad because I was so busy being proud of being gay that we didn't review maybe the gayest episode of Doctor Who ever. So I'm glad that we're going to touch base on it this week, even though we have a ton to talk about from this week's episode.
For sure, yeah. Rogue last week is the one we're going to start for a few minutes and discuss and get our just quick thoughts on it overall, and then we'll jump into the Legend of Ruby Sunday as well. So thanks for joining us. That's Mike Vogel. I am John Rocha. We got a lot to discuss, as Michael just said, so let's jump into it right now. So this is Series 1, Episode 6, Rogue. Here, the Doctor and Ruby land in 1813, where there are guests at Duchess's party, and the guests there are being murdered, and a mysterious bounty hunter called Rogue is about to change the Doctor's life forever. Mike, this was an interesting episode directed by Ben Chessel, written by Kate Herron and Bryony Redmond, and we had Jonathan Groff, Hamilton's own Jonathan Groff, Mindhunter's own Jonathan Groff, coming in here to be a part of this
Frozen's own
Jonathan Groff, but also Indira Varma, who a lot of people have recently seen in Star Wars, but also has been in a number of other things there on the British side of things. So it was great to see her being a part of this as well. But a fascinating episode to drop right before we get into these final two episodes of this particular season here, and a little bit of an allusion to what we got earlier in the first episode, I think, when Ruby is questioning about time change or whatever, when she steps on that clover or whatever and becomes this creature, and we see the return of this species here in this particular episode. So what did you think overall of this episode? First ever kiss between two men on Doctor Who, but also what it explored here and how they were cosplaying as human beings here, and the Bridgerton references. Michael, take it away.
Ooh, so much. Okay, I know we had so much to talk about this week with the other episode, but I do. Yeah. Well, here's what I want. I'm going to start with the annoying note about what it is like to be a queer fan in today's world, which is me, a gay man, watching a super gay episode of Doctor Who, starring a gay actor who is playing Doctor Who and his gay love interest, the bounty hunter, in a Bridgerton setting, which is just inherently super gay. As much as I was enjoying all of it, there is a part of me that my butt clenches up and I get really stressed, because I know as I am watching this episode that there is a section of fandom that is going to go absolutely apeshit, and that I'm going to have to go onto Twitter or go onto social media and deal with this is what's wrong. Everything is so woke now. Of course they gave the Doctor a boyfriend, of course. And I like all of the stuff that I'm like, as I'm watching it and enjoying it as a queer nerd, I am also watching it going, oh man, batten down the hatches. These two are really flirting. This is going to get wild. That being said, I thought it was great. I mean, just doing Bridgerton all by itself, they really nailed it. Not just, we're setting this in a time period that is like Bridgerton, but even with using like modern pop music and in a Bridgerton style with the score, the whole vibe of it, the soap opera aspects of it, like doing that, and then having Ruby Sunday be a Bridgerton fan who is there because she's in a way doing the same thing that the children are doing. Like she's a fan of Bridgerton and said, hey Doctor, let's go do this. And they did it, and they're having a blast and kind of cosplaying and having fun while these aliens are doing the exact same thing. They're just, a little bit more murdery about it. So the whole setup, even like take the Rogue part out of it yet. Just the setup of we are in a Bridgerton type setting and there are aliens cosplaying as humans and it's a murder mystery and we have to save these people. Like that would have been just a super fun Doctor Who episode on the face of it. Like that's just a really great, silly, over the top sci-fi Doctor Who episode that we've seen 1,000 times that I would have liked. Yeah. Adding the Rogue element and casting Jonathan Groff is great because I guess my only complaint that I would have, but I think they sort of solve it by casting Jonathan Groff, is the romance happens so fast.
Yes, it is kind of shot together, for sure.
You think about like the introduction of like River Song or so, you know, like you think of some of these
right.
other characters in Doctor Who where and I think this is sort of a complaint that people have with this season as a whole, which is they're shoving a lot of great stuff into this season, but because it's such a short season, it's all like you feel like we're getting the Cliff's Notes. Like you even feel like we're getting the Cliff's Notes of the Doctor and Ruby's relationship because we're used to seeing these things really fold out over time. So the romance felt really fast, but by casting Jonathan Groff and the fact that these two really have great chemistry together, it sort of makes up for the fact. And you really quickly dive into it. And I think the flirting between them was 100% believable, 100% sexy. And then kind of turning it all into this like noble sacrifice at the end where the Doctor can't sacrifice Ruby. And Rogue's like, I know you can't. And the guy who would have sacrificed anybody at the beginning of the episode makes this sacrifice for the Doctor after this passionate kiss. I was like, oh, it's giving me the vapors, giving me the vapors. So aside from the complaint that it all felt a bit rushed, that like Rogue is such a cool character that I would have loved like that River Song treatment of like, see Rogue in one episode. And then we have an episode where the two of them really debate that the Doctor will save everyone and Rogue doesn't want to save anyone. And then the third episode in or the fourth episode in, you have this noble sacrifice moment. That would have been just perfection. But given the short season order and given everything else, they kind of shoved it in there. So that's my only complaint, but I loved the rest of it.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought it was a fun episode. I'm not a Bridgerton person, never seen one episode of Bridgerton, but I have watched many other British dress-up shows like Downton Abbey or Sanditon or other ones that the Lady Outlaw have watched, and I have watched as Anglophiles. So I got the general gist of what was going on here and the drama and all of that. But discovering the cosplaying aspect of it all and how they're murdering as they go along, and the absolute callousness and totally uncaring nature of them to just kill and kill to move to this position. And this idea that they would one day be king if they just kept cosplaying up the line is a really unsettling type of thing. This and the illusions here and the symbolism of that, I think, was really well done in terms of looking at how people act a certain way in order to achieve a certain level of power. But in behind, they're actually much more devious and manipulative and evil, shall we say, so that they can get to a certain position of power. But they put on these skins in order to move up the ranking. So I thought that was a nice illusion. But I agree with you. The the romance was a bit rushed, but that's why you cast Jonathan Groff, right? You're like, look, we don't have a lot of time. Can you invest this? Can you give this role this real emotional investment? So when the Doctor is going back and forth with you and you're having that playful flirting where he keeps turning on the music while you keep turning off the music, how that grows your attraction step by step by step. And then boom, when you have the sacrifice, it actually carries weight. And the way Jonathan Groff acts it out carries weight, even though you haven't had enough time with it. Because I agree. It should have been. I mean, you cast Jonathan Groff, you want him for like 3 or 4 episodes. You want to drag this out for a bit. But because of the tightness of the season, they couldn't. But that doesn't mean we won't see him down the road somewhere. He may not be dead, as with Doctor Who always.
I mean, what a lot of people are saying, and it does seem like this is the case, is that he's sort of he's the new Jack Harkness. Like, like with Jack Harkness from Torchwood, but like Jack Harkness was sort of this omnisexual character in the Doctor Who universe. Yeah. But John Barrowman,
right.
There was some shady things happening back behind the scenes. There was some issues happening, and we got no more Jack Harkness. But bringing in Jonathan Groff in this role, and I will say, like, as much as I felt the romance was forced, the character of Rogue, like this bounty hunter who is a little bit quirky but a little bit dorky, really likes pop music, like a time traveling bounty hunter that like really fits with the Doctor, aside from a couple key differences to their morality and ethics. He was just an instantly engaging character to the point that he jumped into that hole, and I'm like, well, we goddamn better see more of him. Like, this is like, not only did him and NCUTI GATWA just have off the charts chemistry with each other, and as rushed as it was, every moment of flirting was working really well. Like their flirtation did not feel, we talked about other shows that we reviewed, a lot of geek shows where you're like, I like this romance. I get what they're doing on the page. I don't think these two really are in love with each other. Like, these two could have started making out and I would have been like, yeah, no, that feels like where that was going.
Yeah, and
I've seen that at the bar before. So he's such an engaging character that you do want him to come back. Like I do want them to come. Like I do want to see this romance play out over more episodes in future seasons. So I do hope he comes back.
Yeah, and this was also we shouldn't leave the episode without talking about Millie Gibson. I really liked what she got to do, even though it was a smaller amount of work that she had to do in this episode. I enjoyed her having the interactions with these women of that time, especially that I can't remember the character's name, but back and forth with her about like what's expected of her, what she should do, and the emotions and all the humorous part about using okay as a word and all of that. I loved all of that, and we got to see more of Millie's performance and acting here and what she does with Ruby Sunday throughout this. And it wasn't like what you've seen before where you have people from the present go back in the past and they make fun of the past. It was a playful, organic making fun when it popped up rather than they really abused women back then. It was much more like kind of organic in the flow of things. And I like that and the way they presented it. Yeah.
I mean, and this is what's great. And it's great to have this episode right before what we're about to talk about, where we're just deep in lore and it's really heavy and there's a lot of stuff going on for exactly what you said. Like everything with Ruby in this episode and everything with the shoulder that you were saying before is so perfectly sci-fi in the more fun sense of things.
Right.
Like, yes, a group of aliens coming over that are going to take over the Earth and eventually just blow everything up because it's the most dramatic thing to do. There are a threat. Like it is a valid threat to the planet. But it is a fun and over the top and silly. Like it's not these aliens are bent on destruction because humanity has done this and we have to face our demons and yada yada yada. This is we're cosplaying all the way to the top, and when we're done, we're gonna hop to the next planet and cosplay again. Like it's so silly. And Ruby dealing with it, like they deal with the fact that women are treated differently, that Ruby is a more modern woman with a modern sensibility without making it a issue or something that we really need to dive into. It's just fun. Like the fact that they're like, oh my God, I love how you talk. Those words that you're using are crazy. It's just an episode that knows how to take all the conventions of sci-fi that can be done in a very serious, very powerful way that is important, but giving us the fun and relaxed version of it. Like, hey, we all know this stuff. We all know that women are treated differently. We all know that this is how alien races want to take over the world. Let's give you the lighter, fun episode of this. And even Rogue as a bounty hunter we've seen plenty of tortured bounty hunters that are rough around the edges and have to deal with their shit. And like, you know, we've seen it plenty of times. Having kind of the adorably roguish bounty hunter that really likes pop music, like you're like, okay, I'm into this guy. Let's see more of that. And I think that's when Doctor Who does a fun episode like this, it's always a blast to me. And I think this one was just A+ fun from top to bottom.
Yeah, and we got a little bit more of the Susan Twist mystery. She was she was on the one of the paintings there. But also, hints at Ruby Sunday's power. She fought off this Childer, so by herself in that room. So clearly, she has some little power here that maybe
by herself with the thing in her ear that was allowing her to know all those dance moves
that's
too.
true.
Like she was using a little bit of technology. She just upgraded it to show me how to fight.
A little Matrix action, like we saw.
Matrix action.
Yeah, exactly. But I like that was a part of it too, that you could see Ruby can handle her own. I mean, because that makes sense in how they were portraying her as a woman who could very much speak her mind and fight her mind if she needed to as well. All right. Any final comments on this, or shall we move on to the Legend of Ruby Sunday, brother?
No, I mean, just good. It was super gay. It was gay.
Keep it light, keep it gay. All right, let me actually let's take a break here because it's a good place to put a little commercial, and then we'll jump full on into Legend Ruby Sunday right after.
All right, let's do it.
That's the best I got. That's the best I got. All right, fine. Let's jump into this. The Legend of Ruby Sunday here. Michael, this is a fascinating episode here. Did it 100% all work? I have to say right off the bat, no, I don't think. I think there were some, like you were talking about, the rushing of storylines here. We started to see some creaks in this particular episode, in my opinion. But What did you think of this episode? We have the unit crew with an old companion, Kate Lethbridge Stewart, Rose Noble, an upgraded Blinks, Colonel Ibrahim. Mel is in here. And we meet Harriet as the head of the unit's archive. We meet Morris Gibbons, this 13-year-old scientific advisor here. We revisit the night that Ruby Sunday was left on the steps of the church. The return of Susan Twist, Mrs. Flood, turning full villain there with Mel, not getting Mrs. Flood, not getting her tea for Mrs. Sunday there, Grandma Sunday. And the big reveal that Sutek is behind all of this. An old villain from the 1970s, from the Tom Baker era, is the main villain here in all of this. So your overall thoughts on this episode before we dive into the particulars of this episode?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the main reason, and again, I think everything in this episode is really good. I think that pacing wise, kind of having a lot of the big mysteries that we've been talking about all converge at the same time works really well. But I think that the biggest issue is there, and it's a pacing thing. Like in even me going through Doctor Who and watching like the David Tennant season or the Matt Smith season, there is a pace to those. Yeah. That when you get to the big episodes, you've been traveling with the Doctor and his companion for a while. Like you've been really like easing into things. And so there just feels like there's this breakneck pace. And do I think that Russell T Davies and the team are fitting everything? Like it's not like a season of TV what we've watched on other geek shows that we review where everything is so rushed and you get to the end and you feel like they didn't really hit all the beats or they kind of missed something or kind of fell apart. Don't feel any of that. I feel like everything is hitting properly. Everything is right. It just feels so rushed. And knowing that we're probably going to be saying goodbye to Ruby Sunday pretty soon here, it just feels like, Ruby, we hardly got to know you. Yeah. And we really liked you. Yeah. Like the Doctor and Ruby have this companion Doctor relationship, but a lot of what this is hinging on is the Doctor being like, I don't want to lose Ruby. I don't want to lose Ruby. And in terms of Doctor Who, we're like, we feel like you barely just got to know Ruby. Yeah. So I think that's what's kind of not working for it. I think as someone who's new to Doctor Who, anytime we get to these episodes where you pull into unit and a bunch of people show up and the Doctor's like, hey ho, I get very anxious and I go immediately to my phone and start Googling everything to make sure that I understand everything that I need to understand. So anytime unit shows up and it's like, hey, Kate Lethbridge Stewart. Hey, there's Mel. Oh, hey, there's Donna's daughter Rose. Oh, hey, robot guy with tentacles that I don't quite know who you are, but I get that you're important. Like that's me going into unit. So there's a whole level of like, okay. All that being said, the Susan Twist mystery, the Doctor thinking that it's his granddaughter, the Ruby Sunday, who dropped you off at the church, right? All kind of coming together at the same time, bringing in this pantheon of gods, and then the Mrs. Flood of it all, kind of coming in as well, and all of it being the same thing, more or less. Like it's all like this is all the same mystery. Like we've been going through the season being like, all right, who is the Susan Twist in this episode? Who's Ruby's parents? Who's this? Why is it snowing? And it just seems like it's all the one thing. And I think when we get to next week's episode, it's going to pay off really well. So even though, when they're like, Surtek is the villain, and I'm like, okay, who's that?
What now?
Who he? But I thought it was really all well done, and I thought for the amount of characters that are in this episode, that half of whom I kind of know who they are and half of whom I don't know who they are. Yeah. I think everybody kind of got a really nice moment in this episode as well. And the Susan Twist payoff of like her kind of being in having these dreams, but not really knowing and not really being a villain, like all of it was really interesting to me.
Yeah, I love the Doctor confronting her at that moment and replaying the dreams. Like, is this, you dream about ambulance? You dream about this? You dream about that? And you see the look on her face. And, she does a wonderful job with this character, finally getting a chance to have some real estate other than occasional scenes in other episodes. She really gets to shine here and show you. And when she's like reliving these dreams as he's talking to her about them, all these nightmares, rather in that quick exchange between them, I think it was really powerful. And then when she comes and becomes Sutek by the end and starts speaking, I was like, really embraces the strength of all of that. So I thought she did a wonderful job getting some more time here. But yeah, I mean, Unit was in, I think it's like the going to the gym for the first time. Whenever you're a new Doctor Who fan, Unit is essentially going to the gym for the first time, and that you're walking and you're going, I don't know how to, what machine is this? What do I do with this? I got to Google how to use this thing. And so you Google everyone and you go, okay, I got to go back and watch the episodes that feature these people and introduce these people. And Kate Lethbridge, I mean, the reference to her dad, I mean, having Shuke reference her dad, of course, course, was a massive big part of Doctor Who for a while. I thought was a really sweet thing. Having Mel come back, because we saw her obviously in the specials, but her being a former companion of the Doctor who didn't get a chance to be computer science, whatever she was back then, having her come back and now getting to do more, I thought was a nice addition. And then 2 new people. I really thought the Morris Gibbons character was a lot of fun. Like that kid, like the approach, like that he was worried about traps. So, does the trickster aspect of it all, is that going to come back in the finale? I don't know. But I liked all of meeting Unit and the time window stuff, which the Doctor was hilarious, just laughing at it. Because that's the thing about Doctor Who, man. He's a cool guy. You love him. You like him. He's got a sweet heart. But sometimes his ability to have emotional reactions that are comparable to what's going on rather than over the top to what's going on and a bit insensitive at times is there. And you see when he laughs at the time window, Kate's face of like, well, you know what? We try to do our best, man.
Fuck you.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that aspect of it all. Yeah, but what do you think of the Unit stuff here, Michael? How this all worked? Yeah.
Well, what I do like about Unit in general, and I just love that Doctor Who, from a vibe standpoint, has never, as far as I can tell, y'all can tell me in the comments if I'm wrong, because I don't know everything about Doctor Who, but the vibe of Doctor Who, even in a serious episode like this, is always a little bit like, hey, let's just go with this.
Yes. 100%.
And it's almost like, and Unit itself, there's never been we need to really go in. There's never been that executive note, be like, guys, we need to make Unit, like, look, Marvel has S.H.I.E.L.D. and everyone has these big high tech, and we need to take Unit more seriously.
Yeah.
You're like, no, man, you got tentacle alien up here doing his thing, and you got the 13-year-old kid worried about traps, and then Ruby's like, my mom's outside, and they're like, we can't let a civilian in, and the doc's like, let her in, it's fine. Just the whole vibe of it all is kind of like light sci-fi, where you have the big government agency that's there from a plot standpoint to be like, oh, if we need to take the VHS tape and put it through the thing and do the thing, we can do it. But it's never taken too seriously, even though it does get serious, it does get heavy. There's just a sense of it's a relaxed, fun government agency.
Yeah, the buildup is because the buildup is there, right? Like you said, as soon as they walk in, it's like high fives and hugs and who are you? And Ruby Sunday being introduced to everybody, and everyone's just like, hey, it's great to see you. Even the way the TARDIS comes in, it doesn't do the usual materialization, barreling in through the doors like some kind of starship in Star Wars landing there. And I love that aspect of it all because they give you a little fun and humor and playfulness. And even Ruby running off with, is it Harriet? I forget the characters. Rose, sorry, running off with Rose. There's like, oh, we're best friends now. Let's go meet your mom and let's go get your mom. And then her coming to the tower. So it's all set up in a playful way. And then boom, as you said.
And then when it turns and everything goes to shit in the time window, you're like, okay, well, now we're getting into it. Now Doctor Who just got serious. I can see it. Yeah. They're serious. They're upset. But yeah, no, I think it's fun. I loved Rose. I loved it when the Doctor asked Rose about her uncle.
Yes,
which is David Tennant. So the other Doctor, when they split, you're like, hey, how am I doing? Am I doing okay? Great. I'm doing great. Wonderful. But yeah, so I thought Unit was all really, really fun. And then I think Unit did the heavy lifting of, and again, when you're doing this many mysteries and you are trying to get it all in there, Unit did the heavy lifting of, okay, so what are we doing? Well, I actually do have a granddaughter and she lives and her name is Susan and this might be her. So we have to do that. Well, who is Susan Twist? Well, she did this, but here's the exposition of who Susan Twist is in our world. And this is what she's doing. Oh, well, we already knew that this was actually the anagram for this actually was really meant TARDIS. Okay, cool. Well, then what is this? Well, we need to find Ruby's parent. It was just an exposition dump of everything. And so you're kind of watching it and you're like, well, okay, it's got to go somewhere. We got it. Yeah, you're doing the Lord's work, Unit. You're getting all this information out so we can have fun. So you go with it. But like you said, having such an oddball cast of characters made it at least an enjoyable exposition dump.
Well, and it is standard modern Doctor Who. I haven't gone back to watch all the old episodes of the other Doctors, other than the Tom Baker series and occasional The First Doctor. I like to watch those old black and white episodes every once in a while when they pop up on the Doctor Who channel on Pluto. But this is much more modern Doctor Who, is the goofiness combined with the real stakes, right? They keep you a little light, so it appeals to both sides, but it can be a little creaky at times. But what about this situation? You said they thought it was his granddaughter, but then it's Sutek. But there is still a possibility that it could be his granddaughter down the road. So what do you think is the mystery around Susan Twist? What do you think is happening here?
So one thing I wasn't clear on, I mean, I'm not, Susan Twist is not Sutek. Sutek is,
right.
You know, she's possessed the way everybody else seems to be getting possessed.
Right.
But why the reveal that Susan Twist is showing up in all these worlds, and that's what she's dreaming about, and she's somehow connected to all that.
Yeah.
What that means for Sutek, or what Sutek is planning to do, I'm still not quite clear on that. But I loved that. I don't know that she is ultimately the Doctor's granddaughter, but the Doctor's granddaughter is clearly. I don't know if the Doctor's granddaughter somehow ends up being the one who dropped Ruby off, and Ruby's his great granddaughter. But they've brought up the granddaughter so many times now, and had to explain it. Even with Kate Lethbridge Stewart being like, well, so you have a daughter? He's like, no, I have a granddaughter. Well, how does that work? Well, I'm a Time Lord. Like, they've gone to such lengths to sort of lay this out for us that the granddaughter story is clearly important to, if not this, then the next thing that's happening. I mean, one of the things you do like in classic like comic book storytelling is, as you are wrapping up your big arc, you start seeding things for the next arc. So there's a chance that like the granddaughter piece means nothing to Sutek, but we're going to get to the next season and we're like, oh shit, now we're on to the granddaughter story. So it's definitely coming if it's not part of this.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think it's mentioned too many times to be something that they go, oh, gotcha, you got tricked, you got a fool.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a thing.
Yeah, it's not really Doctor Who's nature to do that to the fans. So I think this is
kind of like 3 or 4 weeks ago when Russell T Davies said that the Susan Twist thing didn't mean anything and it was just casting, and we were all like, okay.
I don't even know why he said that. I'm so ridiculous. But we're talking about the time window stuff, Mike. Let's hone in on that, because obviously Unit is fun and everything. We can nail that, but the time window stuff is really interesting. The really emotional linchpin of this particular episode. Seeing, I mean, by the way, using VHS to time travel, great. I saw a review on, I think, Vulture, where they mentioned that's a Stephen Moffat thing to do, and I was like, that makes so much sense. Yeah. And it was great to see. The snow comes before they time travel, so clearly Ruby still being able to command the snow, and then we see this all play out where everybody can see it, and you see Ruby is so emotional, and here Millie Gibson does a wonderful job portraying the emotions, and Doctor is holding her back, and we're seeing all of this play out. The questions, Kate is watching this, and then of course Ruby Sunday's mom, or adopted mom, is standing outside crying herself, trying to tell this figure, hey, I took care of her, it's okay. And so they're both crying at the same time, this figure in the vision, and then her. And then we do get the reveal, and we'll leave that for just a few seconds later. But what did you think of this whole sequence and how it was staged and how it came about here?
Well, there's a certain part of storytelling where you're like, this is what we need to tell for the emotional part of the story. And then there's a certain part of sci-fi stories or animated stories where you're like, but what's the coolest way to do it?
Yeah.
Like, just what's sheer coolness? And doing the whole, we can't go back in time.
Yeah.
But we're going to do it in this way so that all of the characters can be there. Because if the Doctor went back in time, it would be Doctor and Ruby going back in time, seeing another TARDIS and seeing the Doctor and them watching it. But you wouldn't get all of the other characters being a part of this and all these things. And so doing this whole hook up a VH, I mean, it's like, and again, it's Doctor Who science that makes zero sense. Like when she's like, well, how can this work? Because the camera's pointing this way. And she's like, right, but we can see the snow falling and we can reverse engineer it. And you're like, I don't know what that means, but I'm going to go with it. I think that, okay, sure. I guess we can do that. So I love science that you're just like, yep, cool. But it's such a great, it looks visually awesome.
Yeah.
The concept of the time window is really cool. And then to your point, like having this, like the Ruby and the Doctor in the room and Ruby crying and her mom outside and everybody doing that and the kid looking at the thing, being like, I'm pretty sure this is a trap. Like all of the pieces happening. It just was like the emotion and the tension and everything was building and building as you had like this grainy 3D holodeck visual thing happening around them. And it was just cool. Like it was as far as like being able to visualize how you want to do this, you're like, hey guys, we have a little bit of a bigger budget now that we're on Disney Plus. So let's make the most of it and really blow this out. And they did.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I thought it was really well constructed and the emotions. And look, I don't understand the logic of Ruby Sunday's adopted mom being there. But you know what? It worked. And her saying, I need to go to Nitwit Tower. I thought that was great. And then leaving her mom alone with Mrs. Flood, I thought was an interesting decision. And then we get to this. So the emotional beats though were necessary for her to be there.
But also to your point, I mean, this is again where I think Doctor Who just has fun with it.
Yeah.
Is you're mapping out this story. So you want Ruby's adopted mother to be there when Ruby's watching her mother. Yeah. So you're like, well, I want to, and I also need her out of the house,
right?
Because I want to do this Mrs. Flood reveal with Cherry Sunday. Right. So I need to do all this stuff. How do I do it? And just having Ruby being like, I want my mom to be here. Well, the government, we don't let parents just roll up in here. And the doctor's like, hey, it's okay, cool. Like, it doesn't really make sense, but like, it's fine. Yeah. Like, it's cool. Yeah. Like, when the characters in the world are like, yeah, I know this doesn't really make sense, but I want her here, so let's have her here. And the doctor's like, I feel like maybe it's important. You're like, okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you get all the good stuff because you get that emotional moment of I did my best, she turned out good, which is great. And then you get this amazing Mrs. Flood moment, which we'll talk about because what the fuck was happening there.
Let's do it. This is Mrs. Flood. Like I'm saying, you ain't getting no tea, girl. Get used to disappointment in life here. So this was an interesting moment. I've been saying since the beginning of the Mrs. There's something more going on here. I saw some people speculating she could be the new master, which I thought was a bit too far. But clearly she is one of these people that is heralding the return either of the toy maker or Sutekh here, because she said a storm is coming. Yep. What is this referencing to? And we see the dark clouds rolling in the sky, and it's right around the same time that we get the reveal of Sutekh. So what do you think her role in all of this? What's your speculation on what Mrs. Flood's role in all of this big story is going to be in the next episode?
Well, a lot has been made of the fourth wall breaks this season. That there's been characters that break. I mean, Maestro did it. I believe Toymaker did it. And Mrs. Flood did it in that very first episode. She's like, what? Haven't you ever seen a TARDIS before? And so like, it seems like the pantheon of this pantheon of gods are so powerful that they can break the fourth wall and look right at us and talk to us. So, and she clearly knows that he who waits she says he's not waiting anymore. So her understanding of what's going on here, she knows more than the doctor knows. Like she's got all the information. I don't think she's a herald because I don't think the heralds, like the whole Harbinger thing,
Harbinger,
they seem like they're doing their thing over here. She seems more powerful than that. So is she a part of this pantheon of gods? Is she a lower level pantheon? Is she not that? But also there's been, look, she does, in British terms, telling someone they can't have their tea is the most villainous thing that you can do. So people are going, she's a villain, and the whole thing is done very ominously. So likelihood, yes, she's a god and she's powerful and she's bad.
Yeah.
Low key, maybe she's a god and she's super powerful, but she's not bad. Like maybe she's there to like do something on the, like, is she a god that doesn't agree with Sutekh? Does she, is there going to be a turn in this next episode where we've been set up to think that, oh, Cherry Sunday's in danger and Mrs. Flood is evil, and she's like, now you stay here, you're going to get tea when I'm done, and she goes and then helps the doctor. Like, who knows? But the fact that I think she's tied to this pantheon of gods, to me, seems pretty clear.
Yeah, the twist would be that the reason Cherry Sunday is there with her daughter and then her granddaughter, her adopted granddaughter, is because she's keeping tabs on Mrs. Flood. That could be the twist. Mrs. Flood thinking that she's the one keeping tabs on Cherry Sunday or Ruby Sunday, whatever's going on here. But it's actually the reverse, because I just think it'd be weird to have a character, an actress that just lays in bed the whole series. There's some twist coming with Cherry Sunday.
She is Ruby's grandmother.
Right.
And we are talking a lot about the doctor's granddaughter.
Right, exactly.
So the idea of this multi-generational, like there's, when you have a grandma, to your point, when you have this character who is delightful, complaining about wanting her tea and just getting pissed about everything that's going on outside of her bed. But yeah, like there is a granddaughter, grandfather vibe happening in here that I think is the Ruby's journey and the doctor's journey seem to be like mirror images of each other. So it'll be interesting to see but yes, I agree that like there's seems to be a reason that she's there, not just to lay in that bed and want tea.
Exactly. There's more to come, for God's sakes. All right, let's get to this reveal of Sutekh, man. So this is, if you haven't watched classic Doctor Who, Sutekh was introduced in the 4-part 1975
If you haven't watched classic Doctor Who, here's the villain that exists before even we were born. So
yes, I think so. Here it is. This is the original Sutekh design, Mike, in case you've never seen it. This is the original Sutekh character wearing practical effects, shall we say, a mask there. but it's from the 4-part 1975 serial Period of Mars. He was described as the last of the Osirans, and this is during the Tom Baker era. An alien race is the Osirans, whose wars inspired Egyptian mythology. His goal is to destroy all life. The Fourth Doctor only managed to defeat Sutekh because he hadn't actually returned yet, and 4 made the time corridor that Sutekh was traveling through extend so far into the future that he died of old age before reaching the end, or so we thought. And in the 2016 comic story, Old Girl reveals that Sutekh managed to step sideways into the void where he was trapped with many other gods from different realities. And so maybe they were freed in some way. Some people referencing the salt trick to be here. So this is a fascinating decision to go all the way back to 1975's Pyramids of Mars to grab this overall villain here. And it is a god, and possibly the most powerful god that the Doctor has faced, because NCUTI GATWA is frozen, stiff, seeing this come to life here through the TARDIS and the darkness there, and seeing that Egyptian dog and hearing the voice. By the way, they brought back the actor who voiced it in 1975 to do the voice as well. So pretty cool stuff. What did you think of this reveal? Was it a bit of a letdown, or are you kind of curious about it, excited about it? What did you think?
I think what they lacked in, oh shit, like, I mean, this is for people who have been listening to us for a while. This was like if Mephisto had actually showed up in WandaVision, except you've never heard of Mephisto before. Yeah. Like in Marvel, in terms of Marvel or DC, you build to these reveals and you're like, oh, it's Darkseid. Oh, it's Apocalypse. Right. Oh, it's Mephisto. But like, we all sort of have an understanding of who these characters are. This is like, we got the Mephisto reveal, except we're like, who the fuck's Mephisto? But I think that being said, like, they did it well. Like, the build up, the tension to all of this, as everything is happening, and Susan Twist is on stage giving her speech, and this voice comes in, and because even though a lot of us might not be familiar with Sutekh, if we've been watching, we know the Toymaker has been talking about this He Who Waits, and we know Maestro was super freaked out about it, and we understand that there's this pantheon of gods. So I don't know who this reveal of this guy is, but I know he's the god. Like, I know this is the one. This is the one we've been waiting for. Yeah. And so then when it turned into this like Egyptian dog and this whole thing happened, I was like, huh, okay. But the dog looked freaking cool.
Yes.
And Susan Twist and Harbinger having like, you know, looking like Dr. Facilier from Princess and the Frog with like the skull stuff on their faces, touching everybody and people dying. You're like, well, I get the threat.
Yeah.
Like, so I think what they lacked in oh shit reveal, except for Doctor Who fans who have been sitting around since 1975 waiting for this to happen, I think they made up for in really shooting it and doing it well. We have been reviewing other big geek sci-fi shows that people are watching at this current time, and sometimes our comment is, we really like the idea of this. It wasn't shot great. It didn't build the tension. The performances didn't really give it the weight that we wanted it to give. This, even though I don't know who Sutekh is, the performances, the way it's shot, the way it's done kind of made up for that. And I was like, yeah, that's hot. I'm in.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I obviously I didn't know who Sutekh was either, because I haven't seen it, the serial, but I know that people, I know that fans know that this is a classic villain that they enjoyed. And so the fact that you're getting a 50-year payoff.
I don't even know if fans know that. I know that there are a lot of people listening to this that are way more hardcore Doctor Who fans than we are. Sure. I want to know if I feel like most people did this. Doctor Who fans went, okay, yeah, all right, Sutekh, right, yes. Sutekh. Okay, who is Sutekh? Like, who? Okay, guy. Oh, 1975. Yeah, of course. Yes, Sutekh from 1975. Yeah, and then tells their friends like, "Oh yeah, no, Sutekh, man. Yeah, it's great. Classic Doctor Who villain." You're like, man, you Googled that just like the rest of us did.
Susan Tech saw it coming a mile away. What are you talking about? But what about these images here, man, with Susan too? What is this image there on the left, bro? What is this Borg of the Borg Collective on the right? What are these images that we saw here with Susan? What do you anticipate there?
This is where they're sort of making up. I think the implication here is, oh, we know we only had this many episodes, but we want to make it feel like Ruby and the Doctor went on a lot more adventures. So here's Susan Twist as the White Walker. Here's Susan Twist as the Borg Queen. They were great episodes, guys. If we had been able to do them, you would have loved them. But we didn't, so here's just a quick glimpse.
Yeah, I wonder because there was a Star Trek reference in the first 2 episodes, I think. Like, we'll have to visit that universe sometime. So seeing her as essentially a quick Borg Queen, in my mind, I was like, wait, stop fucking around. If you're going to cross over into Star Trek, I need to know, because that's Disney and Paramount. Those are 2 completely different companies.
Well, this week they are. Just wait till everything merges and we just have one giant all-powerful entity that just feeds us all of our geekness in a tube.
The studio who waits. It's just to take over all the pantheon gods there. All right. Is there anything more you want to speculate on, or you want to talk about here as we wrap up our review of this first part of a 2-part finale here for this season?
Well, this is where you reach this point where you've set the stage. This did, again, with all of the exposition dump that unit had to deal with. This episode cleared the deck for next week's episode.
Yeah, pretty much. Yep.
But then it's up to next week's episode to stick the landing.
Yeah.
So like, we know that, okay, Susan Twist is sort of tied to Sutek and was dreaming about all these things, and that's why she showed up in these worlds.
Yeah.
Why was that important for Sutek? What does Sutek want to do? Who is Ruby's mom or dad? What does the Doctor's granddaughter have to do with all this? Like, Russell Davies, like they have woven themselves a very large tapestry, and they have multiple threads that now have to come together and tie them in a bow next week. And look, it seems like he's had the plan. I mean, even I was reading some reviews, and they pointed this out, which I thought was interesting. Sutek is Egyptian themed, and the number of triangles this season. If you go back and watch the number of things that were triangles or had triangles on them, even in the Rogue episode that we were just talking about, the portal that opens up is a triangle. True. So pyramids have been prevalent. So like, it seems like all of these mysteries that we've been sort of catching up on, like, there seems to be a pretty strong, we know what we're doing here. Will it be satisfying? Can you take a villain from 1975 that most of us have no idea who they are and create a really satisfying? And look, the Toymaker episode was super, super fun. I love the Maestro episode. So I think that this Sutek character has a lot to live up to, because this whole pantheon of gods, the kind of the Q of the Doctor Who universe, have been really, really kind of fun and threatening at the same time. So now that you've unleashed the big bad, and you have a giant Egyptian dog wrapped around the TARDIS in the middle of unit. Yeah. Next week's got to go balls to the wall and wrap everything up.
There was an illusion in the score when Sutek showed up and the TARDIS was there, essentially consumed by Sutek. And remember, he was time locked from going back. So how was a TARDIS there? Why is Sutek wrapped around the TARDIS? And there were some notes of the old Doctor Who theme from back then. And so I'm going to throw this out, and people might think I'm crazy. Tom Baker is still alive. And certainly we have seen modern Doctor Who bring back the old Doctors occasionally for certain serials or one-offs or episodes, or those 2 of the TV movies they did. So it is very possible that those notes were in there to reference Tom Baker coming back as the Doctor, because this was the face-off, I think, that sent him into the corridor. And if it's he who waits, he's been waiting for his revenge this whole time. And certainly we've seen with NCUTI GATWA, he has shared the screen with David Tennant already in those specials. So it would be a real possibility to have
And look,
Tom Baker come back to help him take care of Sutek, so to speak. I don't know.
And as far as we know, right now, David Tennant is, in the backyard with Donna, having chilling out and having some wine. So, kind of doing a all doctors on deck kind of vibe. And even in the Rogue episode, you did have that moment, which was a cool moment in and of itself, where when Rogue thought that the Doctor was a shapeshifter, and he's like, I'm not a shapeshifter, I'm something more, and all of the images of all the Doctors came out. So you might be gearing up for, let's fucking go for this. I mean, look, I wouldn't be mad if Neil Patrick Harris and Jinx showed up. Like, I think the pantheon of gods are so cool that I'm kind of like, they showed up too. I'd be fine with it. So they're gonna go big, but
Totally.
are they in danger of doing the Marvel third act?
Yeah,
that's
good
and
point.
Doctor Who doesn't. Usually when Doctor Who goes really big, they still manages to be very Doctor Who and silly. Even just like the David Tennant and Matt Smith stuff that I've watched, like I've always enjoyed when they've hit those episodes where the Doctor just goes for it, like intergalactic battle and all alien species, or like the Doctor is dangerous. Like when they go super huge, they've done it before, and I've been very satisfied in my limited amount of what I've watched. So if they can pull that off next week, I will be very thrilled.
And Russell T does love to do big finales for his season, so I think we're headed to one massive one next week for sure. And I want to leave you with this one line, which is my favorite line of this episode, Mike, and I'm sure it grabbed your attention too. If time is memory and memory is time, then what is the memory of a time machine? What is the memory of a time machine? Again, this idea.
Well, yeah, the TARDIS. I mean, because the TARDIS has been groaning all season.
Right, exactly.
Like the TARDIS has been like, ugh. You know what? I would groan too if a giant Egyptian dog was riding on my back for however many adventures.
Exactly.
So yeah, like the TARDIS is. I did see one thing that made me. Somebody was like, so wait, this all-powerful He Who Waits God has been trapped in a time vortex for like, maybe thousands of years, and just was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm going to invent a little old lady, and I'm going to change the letters in my name, and I am going to fuck with everybody. I was like, you know what? It's a hell of a plan to come up with.
The Doctor Who plan, if I ever heard it. All right. Well, there you go. That's our spoiler review here for both the previous episode, Rogue, and this episode here, The Legend of Ruby Sunday from Doctor Who Series 14. Thank you so much for joining us for this one. We appreciate it madly. Michael, what do we have to tell them?
If you would like to follow us, you can do so on Twitter at Geek_Buddies, on Instagram at _Geek_Buddies. You can follow Mr. Rocha at The Rocha Says. You can follow me at MKToon. And after you do all that following, you can smash the like button below. Subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page. Check out all the amazing content he's got there. Leave your comments below. Let us know what we don't know. What did you think of Doctor Who? Have you been waiting for Sutekh since 1975? Tell us in the comments below. If you're listening to us on a podcast, go ahead and leave us some comments and stars there so we go up in the rankings. And as always, the best thing you can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
There you go. And of course, don't forget, we also have our review for House of the Dragon coming soon. That'll be coming out. And our main show that just dropped, we reviewed The Boys episodes 1 through 3. In case you're catching up on those, you can hear me, Mike, and Shannon talk about that on our previous episode of Geek Buddies.
And then we will be talking about Acolyte Season 4 later this week.
That's right. So put it all on your calendar, y'all. Talk about smoke coming off a time machine. All right. Thank you all so much. We'll talk to you next time with another brand new spoiler review episode. We're going to the finale here of Doctor Who from the
Geek
Buddies.